Hey everyone, welcome to the second DreamFEEL update. The update for June, I guess. We have a larger cast of characters and people with us today. I am joined by Eve Goldenwoods.
Hi.
There is myself, Laura, and over here on the right we got Adriel, Karen,
Hey.
and Alex.
Hi, let's go.
Um, so we'll get to like a proper intro to like these new faces, so y'all can know who everybody is. So yeah, like the first point on my bullet point is like reception to the first video. It seemed people like it. Uh, we are definitely a bit late with this one for reasons you'll find out. Mostly that we were a bit late finishing the build this month. That's the reason. Okay, you find out. But yeah, things are going really well, and I think I think it's probably good to start off with introductions then. So, our new game has we have a bunch of new faces on the team, particularly these two people, and we have some old faces returning. Bree Chu is back with us, who worked on If Found. So we'll have to get Leah and Bree in on the next call. But it's been really nice to have Bree back, and Bree's been helping out with like doing some animation for characters and some Unity bits and pieces. But a lot of the new look of the art comes from our 3D artists, who I will let introduce themselves. We'll go alphabetically with Adriel then.
Hi, I'm Adriel. I'm a 3D artist. I've been working freelance for a few years, maybe 3 years now. And I also do like translation on the side.
Yeah, like you're living. Oh, you're French. I mean, you're not even just living in
Yeah, also, yeah.
France, but you're French. I mean, specifically which language you did translation for.
Yeah,
That's
English to French, yeah.
cool. And Karen.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm a 2D and 3D artist, a bit of a journalist that usually does character art. Been making games for like 10 years now, so and yeah.
What
I
are some
think
what are some games that like you both have worked on then?
recently worked on I Am Dead that got recently released by Holopons. Also The Wolf's Fight, which is a tiny indie game.
Which is coming out, right?
That's been released a while ago. This is
Oh,
like right now I'm working also on season 3, which
right.
is
Okay, yeah, of course.
this
Cool.
another small cute game.
Adriel,
Yeah.
any projects you want to shout out or anything?
I think one of my favorite recent games was Bird Alone, which I did the translation for.
Oh
It was really
yeah,
cute.
that was
Yeah,
really cool. And Ellie that we worked with on If Found, lots of great
yeah,
trans folks. Ellie worked on the music for that game as well,
yeah.
which is cool. So Adriel and Karen have been working with us since like February, March, yeah. And the game kind of underwent like a kind of an aesthetic shift at that point to like quite a different direction, which we mentioned last month. And over, I'd say March, April, May, we were just like nailing down that art style. And then this month, we were putting that art directly into the game, for the first time for like playable sections, which was really, really fun. So, the big kind of milestone we reached this week, or what was in our build, was what we had last month, except with nice art, or not even everything we had last month, because nice art takes a while, but most of what we had last month plus nice art and some improved mechanics and everything. Yeah, how have you found working on the project? How does it compare to other games?
Want to start, Karen?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's pretty chilled, right? It's like very experimental and fun. So been getting like the chance to do a bunch of different things and learn different bits, which is really nice. It's always nice to have like a smaller team because you get to do a bunch of like you got your own bit on each single aspect of the game because it's very collaborative in that regard. So yeah, been having a great time.
Cool.
Yeah, same. I think for me, it's like it's the longest project I've been working on since I'm freelance. And also it's the one in which I'm the most integrated in the team. And like, it really makes a difference because we're really like working together with the other artists, and it's really cool.
Yeah, like I really like we have this pipeline now that like largely starts with like Leah, I would say, like doing the illustrations, and then Adriel is taking that and making the first models and creating out the areas. Bree integrating it into Unity, and then Karen, who I guess we haven't like specified this, like Adriel's like largely doing the environment right now, and Karen, you're doing characters, but then you're also doing the kind of finishing touches on the environment and colors. So I mean, you have a lot of hats right now. Like, but you seem to like having lots of hats anyway. I think. But yeah, it's going good. I'm really happy with how it's come together, and yeah, we got some nice environments, and we've been trying out like. Yeah, it's definitely a unique art style. Like we can't like again we don't want to like give like too many specifics away, but it's definitely got a unique art style. So part of this is also the shaders and everything. Like this morning we had a big conversation with Tim with like how do we optimize this? Like why can't we just release this only for like beefy 2060 like graphics cards? And then they're like, why? It's like, it's so simple looking graphics. Why does it need a graphics card? And it's like, yeah, there's all these tricks and things. Um so the art has been one big thing we've done this month. Also in the scene, we've been working on mechanics. So for example, one that we probably can talk about is we've had like a system of dialogue boxes in the game, since we started like in October or so, and we got rid of that this month because they were just looking a bit ugly and a bit didn't really fit, and it was just kind of gamey. And replaced them with like speech bubbles, which yeah, looks really nice. I mean, Eve, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm really happy with the speech bubbles. And like the version we have now is like placeholder, but even so it already looks really good.
Yeah.
And it feels much more kind of interesting because it pulls you into the world rather than like placing a layer between you and the world, which is always the frustrating thing. I think there's ways of like doing that where it's aesthetically interesting. People will always shout out Persona 5, which has this like incredibly distinctive style for its dialogue boxes, but I really do love the way speech bubbles like become part of the space in a kind of interesting way.
Yeah, I think we were trying to riff off Persona 5 for a bit, but like ultimately we find the speech bubbles in the world like felt more integrated, and there's some kind of like designy things where they pull you through the world as well as you try to like reach the next speech bubble. And the thing about the speech bubbles as well is that like yeah, any kind of screenshot like looks really nice. It doesn't look artificial. It looks like, oh, it's like a nice piece of art. And when the speech bubble is in world and in place on the screen, like there's a nice combination there. And then there's two other mechanics that kind of got fleshed out. We made them a bit like juicier with like a flash and a shake, and yeah, it's definitely getting there. I think once we finished that on Monday, and then the last few days we have been going over the story, which I'll get to in a second, but also we had some great thoughts about mechanics, which I think is kind of like the last piece of the puzzle for us. What's going to happen in the finale, possibly, if it all works out. And yeah, I think I feel really happy with where the mechanics are going now. And there is a unique mechanic. It's not as like obvious from the get-go probably as If Found, but there are some unique mechanics. And there's still like our kind of ethos of putting the narrative and the flow first rather than like shooting things. There's no shoot. Well, maybe they're shooting things. Who knows? Let's find out. And then the other big thing we finished this month, and like credit goes to Eve, I think, is like version 1.0 of the script. Yeah.
Yeah. Which has immediately been scrapped in favor of planning version 2.0.
Oh, it's great though. Like it was, like we had a lot of conversations in a lot of detail, but then you went and actually wrote the scenes. I think
It's interesting that I was thinking like having script 1.0 and having the kind of finished playable build that we have now both of those things were kind of really the catalyst for then being like, oh, this is the last mechanic we need, and like, this is how we're going to change the script for version 2.0 because now we know the mechanics better.
Yeah.
So it's really nice how that stuff like integrates, where you build something and then you're like, oh, now that I can see how this plays, I know how the narrative should help to make that deeper and richer, and vice versa.
Yeah, and it's like until you have like a draft of it, you can't tell what the script is missing or what parts
Yeah.
work or not.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can start sharing that like slightly more widely, not publicly obviously, but we can start sharing that with people so we can get feedback on it, which would be really great. And then otherwise, last month was just like, because it's Pride Month, or it was Pride Month, which is cool. You have all these extra commitments. But it was fun, like there was like a really cool Apple article and like a bunch of panels, like the Microsoft one. We were on Twitch, which was wild. That was fun. Also, one big thing last month that we started was TikTok. So how's that going, Alex?
It's going pretty well at the moment, I think. Yeah, people have seemed very receptive to it, and we've had the first video did particularly well, but the other ones seem to be kind of like pretty solidly
I think it's just nice as well, I think
yeah.
Stuff like Twitter, is so disposable, and you can become a Twitter personality, but it's like no one really cares except for getting your serotonin burst of seeing some snarky, funny person on Twitter,
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't think we need DREAMFEEL adding to that. Whereas like making videos like hopefully this one and the TikTok ones, which are like super like short little videos, I think is like actually stuff that is there, it can be referenced in the future, but is a bit meatier, I think. I don't know, that's my theory.
Yeah, no, totally. I think
lore theory.
It's a game theory. It's also nice to just work on smaller videos as well, and to be able to take these little moments from bigger stuff, or just like the first video was like a cut together version of our 2 trailers for Found. But yeah, to be able to play around with that stuff a bit more and be a bit more experimental, or a bit more kind of interesting with the editing, because this stuff is pretty standard in terms of editing. It's just kind of cut out the dead air and stuff like that, or like our pauses or all our ums and stuff like that. Whereas the TikTok stuff, you kind of have to think of like what's going to grab someone's attention, and maintain it for about like 30 or 40 seconds. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Cool. That's our update for the month. Let's jump into, we had like a little poll question, and there was a couple other questions from like people on Instagram and Twitter, I think. Eve, do you have the poll question?
I do. So for this month's poll question, we asked people what their favorite section of If Found was, and we had 3 options plus leave others in the comments. Number 1 by like a decent margin was Gig and Attic, which got almost 50% of the votes. Then The End of the World and the Epilogue, and then Break-In and Chipper. I'm not particularly surprised that Gig and Attic was like the most popular, because it's very fun and high energy, and then very sweet and tender, and I think those are like moments that stick with people.
Yeah, we were like, it was kind of hard. We had like 4 options, so one of them we threw away almost because no one wants to like be typing a comment to vote for other. And then we End of the World and Epilogue being like the climax with like finally like burning the book, and then going into space or whatever, and the reunion and the drawing and everything. That was initially out in front actually when I looked last night. So a surprise comeback from Gig. And then I struggled. I didn't know what I was going to put for the third one. So those are the 2 options I was definitely going to pick. Eve, do you have a favorite chapter?
I do really like Christmas.
I thought so, yeah.
It's it's for when it's like one of the chapters that I really pushed to get into the game. I was like, no, there must be a Christmas scene. We're doing Christmas.
That's because we were almost.
Um,
This was like, it was actually Christmas time, or it was like January,
Yeah.
and we're like, the game is supposed to be out in like 3 months. We can't add a whole other chapter. But yeah, you were very adamant, and I'm glad we did. It really worked.
Yes. I think this is true for me, and it's probably true for a lot of other people too, that like for some reason Christmas is always when like messy family conversations happen of like, you know, because you're kind of in this pressure cooker of like everyone's supposed to be having a good time and celebrating, and so of course all of the things that are wrong immediately come to the surface. And I thought that was a really good fit for like where Cassio was at as well.
Adriel, do you have a favorite chapter? And Karen, being two people who didn't work on the game and untainted by its development.
I think it's Christmas too for me.
Okay.
Like I've always had weird Christmases, so like that's it hit close to home.
Nah, I think for me it's the gig. 'Cause
Yeah.
that was like so fun to
Yeah. Like for me it's either like the bonus post credit scene, or it is probably the gig, because that's like one of the first scenes that was done, and it kind of just like, you know, like while obviously it got adapted while the story changed, like it was always a fun chapter. Alex, do you have
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, I would actually say the moving in chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it like captures that feeling of being in somebody's house that you're not like, you know them, but you're not like overly like familiar with them, and then waking up and basically being like this kind of stranger, like, you know, going through the motions of having breakfast and that sort of thing. And
Do you know what's
like, but yeah, I just really like that chapter.
Do you know what's wild is I was talking to someone recently who, like, she spent lots of summers in Ackle, like, as a kid growing up, and she was like, yeah, there's literally, like, a gaff, you know, a house that, like, people used to squat in and go there, and, like, there's one thing we didn't get to show in the game was, like, all the broken bottles in the floor and stuff, you know, which we had planned for, but I think because Colum and Jack and Chance were, like, in there already, like, they would have already cleared it up. Here's our lovely friend, the running out of time timer. So the DREAMFEEL logo will go on top of this.
Yeah.
All right, so then questions. There's like a couple questions, which is, how's the sheep doing from that one scene? I hope they're fine.
Which scene has a sheep?
Well, I mean, there's like the key art has a sheep in the background, but then there's also the diary has like, you know, the farmer looking after her sheep and stuff. I'm sure the sheep was doing good, you know, just chilling, grazing. come rain or shine. I hope because the person who sent this picture in, it's a dog. Their profile picture is a dog. I hope the doggo's doing good too. Then Sailor Moon asks, how are y'all doing? Good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's nice, like,
Thank you for
finishing
asking.
a milestone is always like, oh, it's always like a bit of relief, because like, while we delayed finishing it by a few days because we didn't want to, like, there was no point crunching for, like, you know, a random like end of month thing, so we delayed it until the start of this week, and I'm glad we did that. But even still, it's nice to have it, oh, it's sent off now, we don't have to, you know, worry about it. But otherwise, yeah, doing good. I got a doggo recently. We adopted a 4-year-old French bulldog, and she is really stupid but very lovable.
Frankly, the best kind of pet.
Yeah.
My dad's dog is also very like that. He is like all heart, no brain.
Aw.
And
Yeah.
one last question is, someone wants to hear news about our next project. Well, you got some news. And then Camille also wants to know, was there anything that needed to be cut out from the game, I guess? Anything that we wanted to do by the end? I don't know.
I think
There's
the one
lots of
thing I
parts
can
that
think of. Yeah, sorry, you go, Laura.
I was saying, there's lots of parts that didn't make it. But yeah, is there anything that we specifically cut that we wanted to get in?
The only thing I can think of is that like there, in the original demo, there was like the zooming was a very kind of a focal mechanic as well as the erasing. And
Yeah.
even though there is a lot of zooming in If and now, it's done more automatically, so you don't really see it in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think we have talked about like wanting to take that and do a different game that like really focuses on the zooming part.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there was like a big decision made about like a year out from release, I'd say. And kind of the complexity of the game with kind of free control, and it didn't flow very well. And maybe there were solutions, but at the point we were just more focused on like figuring out the story, and so we kind of simplified the movement mechanic and everything, which has pros and cons. Like some people are like, all I'm doing is clicking, so I think there's definitely another game there where we can make the zooming and the kind of free movement more of a thing. So that's probably the biggest thing. And like maybe if we ever got to do like a super special edition, we might like include other control mechanics, which might tweak it a little bit. Actually, one thing that I realized afterwards was like, because there are moments where you can move freely. I don't know why we didn't make the diary sections free moving, especially when we tweaked them after release. So maybe that's one thing that I would have liked to changed. Yeah, but otherwise, it's the result of the time that went into it and the limitations, and we come up with solutions because, oh crap, we have only this much time, or we got to do X, Y, and Z, and for the most part, that all worked out really well. Yeah, so, oh, look at the cute cat in the background. Ah. Staring at the wall. Does she do that often?
She does. It's having a think about life. It's our other co-worker.
All right. We will wrap it up there then. Thanks for watching update number 2. Thanks to Adriel and Karen for joining us. And yeah, hopefully you guys can hop on in the future. And sometime soon we'll show off all the lovely art that we've been making. And people's minds will explode. Bye. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.